Hello, this is year 2 of our Tilling Wood Chips into Vegetable Fields study that is being sponsored by the California Healthy Soils program. This year, back in November of 2018, after our season was just over, we went out and we spread more wood chips over our field, about 3 acres. This year we had a spreader, and we basically made a one pass with the spreader, which left a little less than probably an inch of wood chips, or about 1 wood chip deep, over the whole field. And we felt confident, based on the results of the previous year, that this would be fine, and indeed it was. And we grew various vegetables here, as you can see here: kohlrabi, broccoli, cabbage. We actually harvest amaranth too, and we sell that at our local market. And then in addition, we did our normal 3 rows, test rows, where we planted broccoli. And 1 row was a control row, which had no wood chips put in, same row from last year. 1 row had 1 inch of wood chips, and another row had 5 inches of wood chips. And this is the second year we've done that, so basically 2 years in a row, the control row has had no wood chips, and 2 years in a row, the row has had 1 inch of wood chips, and the one that has heavy wood chips, 5 inch, is actually been doing that now for 2 years. And so we're very interested to see the differences between these rows and in their production and in the soil organic matter. Now, all of the rows produced well. In fact, they really produced pretty much the same. There was really no difference in the production in the rows. The only real difference was that gophers got into some of the rows more than others, but the actual growing wasn't really impacted. And you can see here how we're harvesting. This is the broccoli we're showing here is in the 5 inch row, and we had a large broccoli harvest all year, as we harvest side shoots all year round. Now, the one thing we did do differently this year is we controlled the weeds much more, and we watered much less. So here you can see the rows where we actually did a light till in between in the pathways to keep the weeds under control, and we did much less watering. So at the end of the season here, we did our soil samples. We sent our soil samples in. And interestingly, this year, there were some wood chips still in the ground in the 1 chip and the 1 inch and the 5 inch rows, whereas the previous year there weren't any wood chips. They'd all been decomposed. And we believe that this is the reason. The reason for this is that we did do watering less, and also there were much less roots in the ground. The previous year we let a lot of weeds grow, and most notably we let a lot of burr clover grow, which is actually very good for the soil. But they actually then, what we surmised is that they actually help break down the wood chips a lot faster than these kind of drier, clean rows did. And you can see the pictures here. We go from, this is the 5 inch, where you can see there's some wood chips here, and the 1 inch, which has just a few wood chips in it, and then the control row, which has 0 wood chips in it. Now, the most interesting thing, of course, is the results of the soil test. And here we've kind of summarized them for the organic matter. When we first started out, we had 2.9% organic matter, and this was in May of 2018. We did another soil test at the end of that year, and interestingly, we found in the control row, the soil organic matter had risen to 4.4%. And we believe that this is because of all the roots in the ground. That year we had 2 lines of broccoli in each row, and we let a lot of the weeds, like burr clover, grow in between the broccolis. And in the 1 inch wood chip, it actually had less. We had 3.9% organic matter at the end of the first year. We just think this difference between this and the control row is just due to variation as to where we took the soil samples. But in the 5 inch row, we had 7.2%, so a dramatic increase in the organic matter. And in the end of this first year, in that 7.2% organic matter, there was no wood chips in the ground. They had all been decomposed. And so at the end of this year now, we just did a soil sample. Actually took a little later, in January now of 2020. And interestingly, the control row it just has 2.9% again. It's gone back to where it was, and this is because there were no real weeds growing this year and less broccoli plants growing. The 1-inch wood chip, 3.2%, and the 5-inch wood chip, 6.9%. So it was a little disappointing because the organic matter didn't increase in the heavy wood chip row like we had hoped it would. It basically just stayed the same or even dropped a little bit because of our difference in cultivation technique. So, and on these next slides, which we'll just flash through really quickly, these are actually the full soil samples of the control, the 1-inch and the 5-inch rows. So going forward next year, we'll do this again with these 3 rows. But I think also what we'll do is I'll just try to add back in the burr clover and grow burr clover in between the broccoli plants to help out the soil. And we'll probably, after this, this is a 3-year study, after it's all over, my guess is that what we'll do is we'll just do a 1-inch, a light, just a 1 pass of wood chips throughout the field as an ongoing practice. The 5 inches actually took 6 passes of going through with our spreader to get it that thick. So if we're going to use a spreader, it takes a long time, and then shoveling them out of the back of a pickup truck actually takes too long also. So we'll probably just go forward with not using compost, but just still doing the wood chips every fall, just a thin layer, and then tilling them in the springtime.